15 weights to be exact, which is twice the amount of pressure that we had on we were running with the Mobile 1 and the Slick 50. Also, I want you to take another tight close-up on the amp meter and notice that even though we've doubled the load, we're still pulling the same energy out of this electric motor. Power up, once power up is added to your oil, when your engine is loaded, it doesn't know the difference between light load and heavy load as far as how much energy is being burned. We're lubricating that race and that bearing so well that it's taking the same amount of energy out of this electric motor to turn the bearings it did when it had 4 or 5 weights on here. Once we've exceeded 10 weights, we've started to enter what we call the boundary lubrication regime, is where those metals and the oil film between those moving metals is less than 3 microns. And it is so tight a tolerance that only the best lubrication that modern technology can provide, which is provided in our product, Power Up, will keep those moving metals separate and quiet without the metal shearing and scoring. So, number one, we're dramatically reducing wear, and number two, we're dramatically increasing efficiency. Let's add a few more weights on. Now we have a total of 18 weights on, and we're still running at the same amount of amps. We've got almost 3 times the load, and we're still running smooth with no apparent metal-to-metal contact. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually remove the oil supply, and we're going to show you how Power Up handles heat. I've actually dumped all the oil out, and you can start to see that our bearing is starting to smoke. And I have a temp gun here, and we're going to take the temperature of this bearing We're running 325 degrees right now, and at 325 conventional oils will start to begin to break down. We've all seen the castor oil commercials back in the 90s where they would show viscosity and thermal breakdown where the engine would actually seize up. We're running in excess of those temperatures right now. In fact, 1 ounce of Power Up to any good grade oil, 1 ounce per quart, will boost the viscosity and thermal breakdown point from 325 degrees to well above 450 degrees. So we can continue to run on this bearing with no oil, with temperatures in excess of 375, 400, 450 degrees. We're now at 350 degrees, and we're still running smooth. All of this with absolutely no engine oil at all in the cup. We've emptied the cup out, and we're just running on residual. The third step, or the third major enemy of motor oil, is contamination. This is a mixture of water and antifreeze. Let's add some water and antifreeze and see what happens. Power Up can handle all but the most concentrated contaminants. We've had engines break seals, flood the engine with water, diesel fuel, and even glycol. Power Up can handle all but the most concentrated acids without breaking that film down. So we have a boundary lubricant, and our other additives are joining together and protecting that race and that bearing from major damage. Now I'm going to take these weights off, and as I do this, the water will stop boiling, because as we take the load off, we're also taking the pressure off, which is causing all the heat. Now that we've allowed that bearing a chance to cool down, we're going to remove the bearing holder, and let's take a look at the wear scar. And you can see that the wear scar is slightly increased in size. We ran probably 10 minutes versus 10 seconds on that bearing surface, and although it has increased slightly in size, it's more or less just polished that rough surface up. With Power Up being able to handle loads at the weight that we were running on here, we were running in excess of 150,000 pounds of pressure per square inch on that bearing. Power Up will handle up to 200,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this bearing to a new spot. Instead of pouring this contaminated sample out, we have water, antifreeze, and a little bit of Power Up and oil left in the bottom of this cup. We're going to run an apples-to-apples comparison under these severe conditions. And all I'm going to do is turn my bearing to a new spot. We've got the hanger cleaned off. We're going to turn the machine back on. We'll take the 7 weights that we seized up, 6 weights we seized up with Mobile 1, 7 that we took for Slick 50, and I'm going to throw another one on just for good measure. And keep in mind, by rotating that bearing to a new spot, we're running on the size of a pinhead. The surface area that we're running on right now is very, very, very small. We didn't hear any metal-to-metal contact, and I want you to take a look at the wear scar. Just going to wipe it off with a paper towel, and you can see how much we've dramatically reduced this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop the oil cup, we're going to pour the water and antifreeze out, and one of the proprietary components in Power Up are the retention agents. Now most metals have a negative charge. Power Up has a positive charge. So what happens is at the time of shutdown, or in the areas where you get poor oil flow, Power Up actually magnetically charges and magnetically attracts to the metal surface. So in the time of shutdown, or if you've even got a severe contamination, there's still a good lubricating film protecting that race. Now, the difference between Power Up and other metal treatments is Power Up does not coat or plate the metal. It doesn't change the tolerances of the metal. And all it does is really treat the oil. Power Up doesn't change the engine or transmission. There's no buildup. All it does is treat the oil itself. I'm just going to wipe it off with a paper towel. I'm going to wipe the excess off the bearing. We've got 8 weights on here. I'm just going to put the bearing back on. We'll be right back to where we started. And we've seized that bearing right back up. Now just to show you how strong Power Up is in its concentrated form, I'm just going to place 1 drop here on the machine, and I'm going to take my finger and just cover the bottom of the race with that drop, and just lift up on this handle just a little bit to let it get 1 rotation, and that 1 drop of Power Up is lubricating this bearing in that race and keeping those moving metals apart better than an entire cup or crankcase full of Mobile 1 and Slick 50, or any other conventional brand oil that you'll find on the market. Now that 1 drop will take our entire load here without missing a beat. Also, I want you to tie it in again on the amp meter. And notice that we're running at a full load of 18 weights, approximately in the excess of 150,000 pounds of pressure. with just the film. This little drop that I had on top of this race is protecting those two metal surfaces. This concludes our demonstration of the Power Up NNL 690.